Now, let's talk about supply. So we already talked about demand, where we were the consumers and we were demanding things, what we're willing to pay. Now, what about the same thing, but if we were a business? All right, and what is a business really trying to do? Is a business trying to pay for something? No, wait, a business is trying to sell something. And why are they trying to sell something? To make money. So that's where we're trying to supply things, because we're wanting to make money. And supply is the amount of a good or service a producer is willing to supply at each price. So basically, you got to look at the price of something and then say, you know what, am I willing to sell at that price? That's really what supply is about. So when we talk about quantity supply, right, the amount of whatever you're selling, right, that is the total number of units of a good or service producers are willing to sell at a given price. So going back to demand, where I said I'd buy 5 apples for $4, let's flip it around. A business is willing to sell 4 apples for $5. Right? So it's the same thing, but now instead of, you know what, I'd buy it at that price, it's on the flip side. It's now, well, you know what, at that price, I'll sell it to you. Imagine you're at a market and you're trying to negotiate something. Like, okay, let's talk about if you haven't bought a car before, or if you have bought a car, let's talk about negotiation real quick, because you're going to go in and you're going to say, the dealership is like, hey, here's the price for the car, and it's always too high. So what do? You know what? If you were to do this price, let's say $10,000, I'm willing to buy this car for $10,000. Now, they're going to go, you know what? I don't want to do 10,000. Can you do $14,000? And then you're going to go, you know what? I'm not willing to pay $14,000 for it. Because remember, you are demanding. You're the one that is going to be paying this price. I'm not willing to pay $14,000. Then they're going to say, you know what? I'm willing to sell it to you. I'm willing to supply it to you for 12,000. Right? So now we're on the supply side. We're willing to sell it for 12. And then all of a sudden the demand's like, you know what? I'm willing to buy it at that price. So then that's how supply goes, is where, we're having the demand side where it's the willingness to pay for something, and then we're having the supply side where it's the willing to sell at it. So the law of supply goes like this. Assuming all other variables affect that supply are held constant, if the price goes up, then the quantity goes up, and if the price goes down, then the quantity supply goes down. That's kind of hard to understand, but if you just look at the arrows, right, price up, price down, quantity down, or the way I like to think about it, what does a business want to do? They want to make money. So if the price goes up on something, are you willing to sell more of it? Yes, right? Because here's the deal. If the price of apples goes up to like $8 a pound, you can make a lot of profit at $8 a pound. So what do you want to do as a business? You want to try and sell as much as you can at that higher price, because then you can make a lot more money. And that's how the law of supply works, is because if I wanted to make money and the price goes up on it, I want to try and gain as much as I can. So that's the law of supply. If the price goes up, quantity goes up. If the price goes down, however, then it's like, you know what? We need to cut back, right? Because I'm not willing to sell at that price. So, maybe I'll give you 1 apple at that price, but I'm not going to give you 5, because it's not worth it to me to supply it there. So the law of supply: higher prices, higher quantity; lower prices, lower quantity. That's how supply works. Now, just like demand schedule, we're going to have a supply schedule. So on the supply schedule, we're going to have a table that shows the quantity supplied at a range of different prices. So we have a price column and a quantity supply column. What are we noticing? As the prices go down, what is happening to the quantity? It is also going down. Law of supply. So what does this look like on the supply curve? The supply curve is a graph illustrating the relationship between price and quantity. Price will always be on the vertical axis, the same as demand. Price is on the vertical axis, and quantity is going to be on the horizontal axis. It will always look like this. Price, quantity. Will always be that. Now, the law of supply. What is happening here? We know that at higher prices, what happens to quantity? Quantity goes up. So here's where a lot of students get confused. When I say quantity up, they're like, well, if it's on the horizontal axis, is it going up? No. When the quantity is going up or quantity is increasing, let's change that real quick. If the quantity is increasing, right, instead of selling 5, we're selling 10. Instead of 10, we're selling 100, right? It's going up or it's increasing. That would mean that if that were 0 on the left, that would mean infinity would be on the right. So when I say quantity is increasing, I'm saying it's going this way. So if we were to increase the price, increase the quantity, that means we would be here. So if we connected the dots, the supply curve should be upward sloping. So remember, demand was downward sloping, and I told you if you're reading left to right, it's looking like it's going down. The supply is upward sloping. So again, reading left to right, it's going up. So looking here, we can use the supply schedule to plot the different points on the supply graph. So for instance, $2.20, right? That's 720 million gallons. So sure enough, we're going to go 2.2, put a dot, and then we're going to go down to quantity, and it'll be 720. So that's the first dot, so that'll be point A, right, or point 1. And then on the next one, we have $2, and as you can see here, what happened to quantity? If we were at 220, and now we're at $2, what happened to quantity? It goes down because of the law of supply. Businesses are like, you know what, that's too low. I don't want to supply at that price. So we're going to sell less. So then that means we're going to have a decrease in quantity. So now we're at this point here. So the supply schedule, right, we're going to plot these different points, and then if we connected them at the end, right, that's where we will have a downward sloping supply curve. Now, earlier I told you that the law of demand had a negative relationship. What did I mean by negative relationship? Well, the law of demand, right, which was price up, quantity down, right? Stuff is more expensive. Me as a consumer, right? Stuff's more expensive. I buy less of it. So negative relationship, inverse. The law of supply is going to be a positive relationship. What do I mean by positive? Price up, quantity up. So that's another way of saying the relationship with the law of supply is positive. Now, don't get confused here, because if price goes down, guess what happened to quantity? It also goes down. So when we mean positive, what that means is they go in the same direction. That's what we mean by positive. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is equilibrium. So equilibrium is going to be an interesting topic here, because now we're combining everything we know about demand, and then we're going to combine everything we know about supply. And we're going to put those on one graph. So equilibrium is the combination of price and quantity where there is no economic pressure from surpluses or shortages that could cause price or quantity to change. I will explain what that means in a second here, because what we're really searching for is where the quantity demand equals the quantity supplied. What that's really trying to say is back to the car example, like trying to buy the car. So the demand, the consumer comes into the store and they say, can you sell a car for $10,000? Then the firm says, no, I'll give it to you for $14,000. So we're not having this agreement, right? We're having 10,000, 14,000. It's not going to make up. What if the consumer said, fine, I'll do 12. And the firm says, okay, let's do 12. What are we having now? We're now having this agreement on $12,000. So because the demand side is coming in and the supply side is coming in and they shake hands, right, because they agree on $12,000, that's what's happening here. We're coming to an agreement that quantity demanded and the quantity supplied are equal at this price. So when we're trying to say quantity demand is equal to quantity supplied, that's actually what's happening here. Okay, at this price here, I'll buy this quantity, and then at this price, I will supply this quantity. That's what equilibrium is. So the equilibrium price is the price where quantity demand is equal to quantity supplied. Equilibrium quantity is the quantity at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal at a certain price level. So go back to just the simple example of the car. Where are we trying to buy the car? Like, what price is that at? So on a graph here, what we're going to have here is, remember, price always goes on the vertical axis, and quantity is going to go on the horizontal axis. Now, when we're dealing with trying to set up equilibrium, what we need to do is we need to set up the demand and the supply. So that's why it's very, very important to understand which one is which. So let's go through it. If I asked you to draw the demand curve and you were to tell me everything you know about demand, right, what would you be thinking about? For me, it would be, okay, if I'm demanding, I'm a consumer. And as a consumer, okay, price and quantity. More expensive, why buy less stuff? And if it were cheaper, I'd buy more stuff. Okay, cool. Let's go with that. So if stuff were more expensive, I want to buy less of it. Okay? And if stuff were cheaper, I'd want to buy more of it. And sure enough, that's how we set up the demand curve. So the purple line. And then we have to set up the supply curve. And the supply curve is going to be, what would a business be supplying? So if I were a business, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to make money. And so basically, what's going to make me sell more stuff? Well, if people are willing to pay more for it, yeah, I'd supply more of it. Okay, so if price goes up, I'd supply more. And what about if price goes down? Well, if price goes down, like, I can only do one of something, maybe two, right? So what does that mean? That means if price goes down, I now am supplying less. And then I have the supply curve like that, where I'm connecting the green dot and the red dot. So now, what's happening here? If I were to take away these arrows real quick, we would see we have created the demand curve and the supply curve. And there we go. So that's the demand and the supply. All we're doing is we're combining the two, and wherever they are, right, intersecting, I like to think of it as a handshake because that's really what's going on here. At this intersection where they cross each other, that is the equilibrium. Because this equilibrium is where they agree. So at this price, P star, this is the quantity, Q star, that we agree upon. Whether it be one car at $12,000 or 5 apples for $4. Whatever that is the price and quantity. Now you may be thinking, well, how does this apply to real life? Here we go. If you go to HEB, all right, and you're looking at, let's say, meat. Okay, if you were looking at a steak and you go by and you're like, okay, I have to buy 4 steaks if I want to have a party tonight. Okay, so there's your quantity. That's what you are demanding. 4 steaks. And then all of a sudden you get over there and you're looking at them and you see 4 steaks, but the price is $50 for 4 steaks. And you're like, you know what? That's way too high. All right. So guess what you do? If the price is too high, you don't buy it. Or what do? You buy maybe 2 steaks. And then you have to buy something else, which we're going to get to in a second. But that's what you're doing, right? The price is too high, so you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll buy less of it. Okay. Now, what if you just didn't buy it at all? Okay, let's just say that. What would a business start doing? Well, a business would start to realize, okay, why are people not buying this product? Is it because it's not good? Or are we pricing it too high? So that's where business has to step in and say, okay, what's going on with our product? And if it is the price is too high, then we need a lower price and people will start buying the 4 steaks at whatever price it is. So that is the equilibrium in real life. So you, by passing by in the grocery store and you saying, yes, I'll buy that, no, I won't buy that because it's too expensive, that is where you are making the equilibrium. Because if you bought something, you are agreeing to buy it at that price, and the firm who put the price there is also selling it at that price. So anytime you buy something because you want it, and the firm is obviously selling it at that price, you are at equilibrium. And anytime you don't buy something because it's too expensive, right, then that is not at equilibrium. And eventually something's going to have to happen before you would buy it. Maybe a change in demand, or maybe a change in price. And we'll get to that later. But this is honestly what happens all the time. All right? So that is how equilibrium works. So, in the next one, we're going to talk about what is happening with these surplus and shortages. And that's where it gets kind of interesting and talks more about what I was mentioning with the changes in price. So, I'll see you there.